wonderful part of the Negev in Israel. Um, so Tuvia is a very renowned and innovative Israeli tour guide. He's also an author. He and I have a bit in common in that we both spent some years in South Africa as children, round about the same time period. Although he was on the coast and I was inland in Pretoria. That's just a little bit of mindless trivia. So we have Tuvia guiding us tonight and taking us on this adventure. So really, without further ado, I'll be guiding you at the right moments as to when we'll be watching the video. But in the meantime, I shall hand over to Tuvia, and for all of you, just sit back, enjoy the scenery, feel the warmth of the nice Israeli sun coming through the screens, and let's all try and imagine ourselves there. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Tuvia. Thanks, Tuvia.
Good evening to everyone. I hope that Steve didn't worry you too much, because I won't be talking with a heavy South African accent tonight. We will be conducting this in the Queen's English. And basically what we're going to be doing is something that most people don't do, even people that live in Israel. For most people who have had the fortune and privilege to be in Israel, there's the standard tour that everyone does, the same old, Israel 101. Everyone goes through J-Town, the big J, to see all the special sites in Jerusalem, from all the different faiths. People go to Masada, people go down to Tel Aviv to the beach, and there's a whole other country that people just don't see. Even people who've been multiple times to Israel tend to focus or concentrate on the same sites. And even people who have family in Israel who visit, they usually see even less, because they spend most of the time with their family, maybe an occasional trip to the beach or some shops in Ben Yehuda. So there's a whole other Israel out there, a world in one country, quite literally. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in this series. This is the first of 6. We'll be taking you literally off the beaten track. I guarantee you most people who live in Israel have not been to these places either. And in many ways, because of the coronavirus situation, this takes us almost back to the 19th century. Many of you probably are not familiar with the fact that there was an American author whose name was Samuel Longhorn Clemens from Hannibal, Missouri, better known by his pen name as Mark Twain, who actually wrote a book that was a bestseller, much more than the books you've heard of, such as Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain and all those other books. Tom Sawyer, he wrote a book called The Innocents Abroad, and that was the bestseller. Why? Because what he did is he went on the grand tour of Europe, culminating in visiting the Holy Land itself. This is back in the 19th century. Back then, like today, because history always repeats itself, people couldn't travel. It was very difficult. Just to go to Europe from the United States back in the 19th century, you had to take a steamship for 2 weeks. You had to spend months in Europe going around by horse and car. People just couldn't do it. So the only way people could travel and visit these places was vicariously. So his book called The Innocents Abroad, where he actually did 2 things. One, incredibly witty, amazing descriptions of the places he saw in both Europe and Israel, to such an extent, if you look at it now and read it, you feel like you're actually at the places. And the other thing he did, the book was called The Innocents Abroad, wasn't too difficult. He made fun of his fellow American travel companions. Those were the innocents abroad, because they were going to cultured Europe and visiting these old civilizations and countries, and they were the innocents. So on the one hand, it's very tongue-in-cheek humor with his laughing at himself and his American travel companions. On the other hand, very witty descriptions of where he actually visited. So today, I'm going to take you to what was, before March last year, Israel's most popular tourist site, but not actually go to the site itself, rather go around the site quite literally. So a bit of background here. Masada was, as I mentioned, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the most visited site in Israel, with well over 1 million visitors a year before coronavirus. It's phenomenal, the numbers. I was there making this video for you people, and the entire day I was there, we literally saw 1 bus of soldiers and about 30 Israelis. It it was almost like a post-apocalypse world. See this massive, famous, internationally renowned site, basically empty. That was Masada itself. But even on a top day, when it's normally packed in the middle of season, what we're about to see today, you'll also still be empty as well, because only Meshuggahs, or as they say, only, what's the expression? I'm trying to remember the expression now. In the midday sun, who goes there? Mad dogs and Englishmen, right? So only crazy people would do what we're about to do now. You'll do it vicariously. And that is, if you think Masada is a schlep to get to the top, I'm sure some of you might have done the snake path. It takes about 45 minutes going like that. The mountain next to Masada, which we're going to be doing to the south of Masada, is actually twice the height, Mount Elazar. And the first 15 minutes of the presentation will be ascending that mountain. Why on earth would we want to do something like that? We as in the royal we. You'll see when you see the presentation. Just before we go on to the video link though, I wanted to remind you a technical thing that Steve neglected to mention in all his excitement to get onto the main presentation. If any of you have questions, please post them in the comments section and Steve will be able to read them out. And we're going to watch 15 minutes, have a break, take the questions the first 15 minutes, then watch another 15 minutes, and then take more questions and have a wrap up. So just before we go into the video, I wanted to go to share screen. I'm going to share my screen and just show you a still picture of what we'll be doing, a still photograph. So bear with me. We hope. Share. Okay. So this is, hopefully you guys can you guys see that or not? Can you see the share screen, a picture of Masada?
No.
Steve, can you see it?
We're seeing the library, Stuvia.
No.
Oh, no, okay. Let's go back again. Do you see all the pictures within it though, right? Do you see all the little pictures, Steve?
Yep, yep. But we just can't see the main
Click on
image.
one now. What?
We can't see the main image.
Oh, you can't see, you could just see Kilimanjaro?
Yeah. No, but we see it in a thumbnail as part of your library.
Can't
Okay.
see it. You need to enlarge it.
Okay. We are moving on this now. Can you see my thumbnails now?
Yes.
I'm going to click on one particular one.
We don't
see
see
the
the
one
individual
picture?
one. No.
You don't. Okay. Well, I do. Okay. Welcome to the world of Zoom, everybody. Bear with me one more second. I'll do one more try, and then we will just go straight to presentation if we need to. Resume share. Okay. So you can see the thumbnails now, Steve, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I click on one, you should see it. Let's see.
No. No,
They're
we're not
not
seeing.
opening.
We're not seeing
They're not
the.
opening.
We're not seeing
Not
it.
opening.
Okay, just opening on my screen. Okay, so we're going to go straight to the video because that we definitely do have. Steve, you're going to send out the link?
Yep. So I'm going to share my screen. And I am also, sorry, just bear with me.
If it helps, we can now see two chaps on a by side of a mountain. Is that the screen
Yeah,
you wanted
no.
to show?
So
Yes.
that's the link. I've just posted the link into the chat. However, give this a try first on my share screen. Rather try and watch it as I start to share my screen with you. So, okay, Tuvia, I'm going to press start.
No, wait a second, Steve. Before you press start, I just needed to point out that there's two people on the screen, as you can see. There's myself in the background with the Liverpool hat. Do not talk about the game or this conversation will be over. And the second is a friend of mine called Shmuel Chantal, a fellow tour guide and the cameraman in this situation, who's also be guiding a bit. He is from South Africa, fair and square, and even talks like it. So the two of us will be taking you on this journey. And there's a third person you don't see, and he's operating a drone. So you'll have both drone footage and ground footage. And the first 15 minutes will be the mountain next to Masada, the southern and higher elevation than Masada. So the views you see from the top will be Masada from the south. And we're going to watch this now for 15 minutes. Any questions you can type in the comment section. And after 15 minutes, we'll take a break and answer those. Enjoy, enjoy.
Enjoy.
Boker Tov, good morning. Shmuel, the running tour guide, coming to you from one of the most fascinating places on planet Earth. And today I have the privilege and honor to be with Dr. Book, Dr. Tuvia Book, one of the most passionate Zionists I've ever met. Today we are going to capture a mountain. We're going to capture it on the GoPro, bring it to you. So where are we?
The most famous mountain in Israel. Masada, from the Hebrew word Matsudah, fortress, is the most visited site in Israel, United Nations World Heritage Center, UNESCO, and yet we are not going to do it. We came all the way to Masada not to do Masada. We are actually going to be hiking up the mountain south of Masada called Har Elazar.
Let's see it. It's the sign Ma'ale Elazar.
I'm lucky we're both very fit because this trail is for fit walkers only. Know what I mean? Nudge, nudge, wait, wait. He's fit, isn't he?
This is who we are. This is what we are. But no time to waste. It's a little after 6 o'clock. The sun is about to peak behind the mountains of Moab. The birds are flying. Pigeons making their way to the columbariums, the dove posts on top of the mountain. Who knows? But have a look. Here's the sign. Masada National Park. Let's go and experience it. Let's capture it. Peace. And we're off. Stop to enjoy the sunrise. And Tuvia wanted to have a spiritual moment. There we go, our first glimpse of Masada. Hiking up Har Elazar, got a beautiful view of the serpentine path, snake path. So how long is this hike up Har Elazar in comparison to the snake path?
Twice the distance.
Twice the distance, double the beauty, and 3 times the time.
Guys, look over there, UFO landing sites.
OMG, everywhere. Look at the size of this one.
What could they be?
So good to be out here. At least I know the person that's with me appreciates it. Probably even a little bit more than me.
Just a little bit more.
Now the work begins. It's quite comforting standing in the path of a rock slide river. Have a look at this. Huge boulders that have come crashing down from the cliff, making their way all the way down to the valley. And truth be told, aren't we in an active tectonic area?
Indeed, my friend, we are in the Syrian-African Rift, a huge fault line all the way down East Africa. Milk and some cucumber sandwiches on the lawn.
Down at the Roman camp, inside the comfort of a 10th Legion.
10th Roman Legion, 15,000 soldiers signed up for 25 hard years. The reward?
A cup of tea in the Roman camp.
And Roman citizenship. In fact, when they were paid, their money was called a salary, from the Latin word saleros, which means salt, because salt was that precious. And here we are, look at Yam HaMelach, the salt sea. It's worth a fortune to a Roman legionary. Those caves at the bottom, underneath the southern wall of Masada, Yigal Yadin in the early 60s found 20 bodies, and they still had the remains of clothing fragments from the Second Temple period. So the theory is when the Roman legionaries got to the top and saw all the dead bodies, they just threw them in the cave underneath. And that's where they lay for 1,900 years until Yigal Yadin uncovered them and reburied them with a full military funeral. The caves over here underneath the southern wall of Masada.
Wow.
The last resting place of the defenders of Masada.
Folks, I can't even tell you what I feel like right now. I stopped counting how many times I've been to Masada after number 200. It is the most visited site in the state of Israel, amongst the most visited sites in the Middle East. And here we are today. There's not one tourist on the snake path, usually full of hundreds of youth groups and people from all over the world climbing up it. When we look at the car park, it's usually packed with tour buses. There's one solitary bus, and that belongs to IDF soldiers. Not one tour bus, 4 private passenger cars, and this is where we are. We almost feel like we're living in a post-apocalypse world where life as we know it has changed irreparably forever.
Eschatological.
Welcome to the twilight zone.
End of days scenario.
As predicted in the book of Zechariah.
Bring on the prophecies.
Ezekiel.
Laughing at these eschatological end of days scenarios. You know, this is actually the strangest thing, that all of these prophecies were brought to us in this region. And 2,000 years ago, well, this is longer, 2,600 years ago, the prophets were talking about the end of days.
And 2,000 years ago, the Essene sect just up the road here wrote those down in the Dead Sea Scrolls in the book of Ezekiel.
So you tell me history is not alive. It's not his story, it's our story. And we're telling it. Enjoy it.
This is no longer black and white words in the Bible. This is the prophecy fulfilled.
Oh, Angie, just look at that. We've now reached the level of the peak of Masada, which means we're 33 meters above sea level, about 100 feet above. But look at this steep, incredible valley between Masada and where we are. So where's the Roman camp?
Beyond them are hills.
Let's go. Let's get there. Open the legs, let's go. Kadima.
Forward to victory.
Netzach.
You shall never surrender. Just like them on the beach house. Blood, swell, tears, sweat. You shall never surrender.
That's it. To see Masada from the south, so impressive. So you're saying this is part of the siege wall?
Yes, the Romans didn't do anything by halves. Not only is it part of the siege wall, this wall is part of the Roman camp 8 overlooking Masada. And this, by the way, is the best preserved Roman siege fortifications on the planet Earth. It remains frozen in time, very much the way it looked 2,000 years ago. Roman Army Camp H. The secondary entrance over there, the southern entrance. The northern entrance over here. And this tile of square stones in the middle was the base for the Roman military tents, where the soldiers had their beds and their benches. On top of it was the canvas tents. Exactly the way that it was abandoned in year 73 after the successful siege of Masada, and never been touched by the archaeological spade since then, waiting to be uncovered. The secrets to be revealed to the world.
How many siege camps surrounded the mountain?
8.
8 siege camps.
8 siege camps, 2 of them major. The Roman commander, Flavius Silva, his camp was over there to the northwest of Masada. And this is one of the minor camps, but this was the only camp built higher than Masada itself. So everything the rebels did on Masada could be spotted by the Roman legionaries up here and reported down to the HQ camp. And the most famous thing they saw the Jews reinforcing their wall where the siege ramp would come up. Just over there, you can see the siege ramp. They saw them reinforcing the casemate wall with cedar beams taken from Herod's palace. And that's why the wall was set on fire. Because from up here, they saw them taking apart Herod's palace, the building over there with the roof on, and moving the ceiling beams over to the wall. So that vital intelligence helped bring the end of Masada.
Talking about what you can see and what you cannot see, and what can be discussed and what cannot be discussed. There is so much to do here. But the point of this vlog is to take you places that most people don't get to.
And this is the vantage point where you can really see it all. So that is cool. 7 of the 8 camps we can see from here. Truly, a place that most people don't get to, right? How's that? The eyes in the sky. The engineer.
My friend Shmuel and myself are standing here today on the ruins of a Roman army camp. And here we are with our tefillin and talit, about to praise the God of Israel. In the year 73 CE, he would have tapped a Roman soldier on his shoulder and said, by the way, in 2,000 years' time, there'll be 2 Jewish tour guides praying to the God of Israel in an independent Jewish state on the ruins of your camp. They would have reacted with scorn and derision, and maybe even tickled you in your neck with their sword. They would have said, fools, how can that be? We're the Roman Empire. We rule the world. We are just about to snuff out the last Jewish independence. And yet here we are, 2,000 years later. Where are we and where are the Romans? I happen to have on me over here a coin, a very unusual coin. This coin was minted, this is a copy of the coin minted by the Romans after the fall of Judea in the year 70 CE. And it shows on it a palm tree symbolizing Judea, a Roman soldier standing victorious to the right, and to the left, a weeping Jewish woman. And it comes from the Psalm, Al Naharot Bavel Sham Yashavnu V'Bachinu. The rivers of Babylon, we sat and we wept. And it says, even if you don't have to be a great Latin scholar to understand the script, Judea captor. Judea has been captured. And when the Romans minted this coin, they also built an arch of triumph in Rome called the Arch of Titus, showing them carrying the spoils of war of Judea into Rome. 1,900 years later, the Jews returned, and they also minted a coin. And their coin, when we flip around, shows the same palm tree for the Jewish land of Israel, for Judea, for the land of Israel. But the Roman soldier has vanished, as the Romans have, into the dust and ashes of history. And in his place is that same woman who no longer sits weeping, but stands proudly and tall, holding a baby into the air to symbolize the rebirth of the Jewish people. And in place of the weeping woman, her husband kneels in the land of Israel, planting a new sapling, symbolizing the rebirth of the people in the land. And underneath, 2 words in Latin, Israel liberata. Israel has been liberated.
Amen.
So,
amazing. Wow. Goosebumps, brothers and sisters. Goosebumps. Miracles happen in this land. Let's see if we can give it a shot. Let's try. Takia!
so cool.
Wow. Look at the goosebumps.
I'm going to video it.
That is unbelievable.
Time to do it again.
The land of miracles. What a privilege to blow the shofar throughout the land, but to be able to do it where we are right now.
Oh, their spirit's still there. Here we are before Rosh Hashanah, and we pray very hard. Tekah b'shofar gadol lechewotenu.
The sun is.
That God should blow the great shofar for our freedom and bring us together from the 4 corners of the earth. Are those Jews and their spirit still there? Let's find out.
Takia!
Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live.
Am Israel Chai! We made it down. And
Yep, Sylvia.
Okay, cool. All right, Steve, do we have any questions?
So at the moment, no, we don't have any questions. We do have some people asking for your details and your colleagues' details for when, please God, everyone can start traveling again. So I shall tomorrow we'll be sending out an email to you all with a link to the recording of this, so that you can watch anything that you may have missed, or you can share it with friends and families. So I'll put all of their details in there as well, although Tuvia has just shared his website in the chat. So Tuvia, back to you.
Okay, so I just sent Steve some pictures in the interim. Do you want to pull those pictures up, Steve?
Yeah, Tuvia, give me a minute, because I couldn't navigate on the screen whilst I was sharing the video with you all. So if you could just bear with me for a second.
I'll fill in the gap.
Okay,
okay.
great.
So I noticed one question in the chat was just a technical question, how long the hike itself is. First of all, I wouldn't recommend it even for fit hikers only in the summer, because in July and August, it literally can get up to that high 40s centigrade, that is. And so it's a lovely hike to do in winter, no danger of flash flooding on top of the mountain, and also in spring and autumn. But in the heat of summer, in July and August, it's pretty hectic. So to get to the top, the initial black trail, which is pretty easy, one starts from the youth hostel next to Masada, and to get to the top is about 45 minutes of a steady pace to get to the top. And then you've got a plateau, you walk along the top, which we'll show you in the photos, which is where we finished the first 15 minutes. We're on the plateau, next that Roman army camp to the south of Masada, overlooking Masada from above, from the south. The still photo we'll see soon. And then you can spend about 50 minutes on top enjoying the view and meditating and taking in the scenery, and then back down again, not the same way we came up, but we're doing an entire loop around Masada, about another 20 minutes or so to the foot of the Roman ramp. And then you have a choice. You can either do what we do in the video in the second half, which is go up the Roman ramp, which is about 10 minutes to the top. This is from the west side of Masada, and then just go down the cable car back to where you started, or walk down the snake path. Or else you can do the second option, which you're going to see now, which is to do something called the runner's path, which is to carry on going around Masada to the west, then the north, and then you eventually end up back in the parking lot again. And that takes another about hour plus. So the whole hike, if you had to do Mount Elazar and the runner's path, about 2.5 hours.
Okay, great. So Tuvia, we do have a couple more questions have appeared in the chat. Are you happy for me to ask them at this stage?
Yeah, I can read them in the chat, actually. There's not that many.
Yeah.
Has Mount Elazar been excavated? The answer is absolutely not, which is amazing. There is an archaeologist, very famous archaeologist called Jody Magnus. She's the head of archaeology, the head of the department in the University of North Carolina. And she has excavated some of the major Roman army camps around Masada, including the one of Flavius Silva, who was the commandant of the entire 10th Legion and head of the operation. And she's published last year a book about Masada, Myths and Facts, which is well recommended. That's Jody Magnus with an I, Jody with an I. And she has excavated, she's made it her one of her passions to excavate the Roman army camps. But the one on top where we saw just now, because it's so inaccessible, really the only way to get up is either to schlep up or to go with a helicopter on top with all the archaeology equipment. So that basically is more or less the way that it's been the last 2,000 years since it was abandoned by the 10th Roman Legion. And that, my friends, is what makes Masada so fascinating. It's the world, and I kid you not, best preserved Roman siege fortification anywhere on the planet. Because normally when the Romans laid siege to a city or a town, when the siege was over, they would take their equipment and move on. In this particular case, they didn't. They stayed on top of Masada for a few decades afterwards. There was a temporary Roman garrison. And then you just picked up and left. To the Roman siege wall, all where the stones of all the Roman army camps have stayed exactly the way they are in situ. And because it is so dry there, organic material is actually preserved, which is quite rare. So when Magnus was excavating, she actually found things that wouldn't normally be found in an archaeological dig anywhere in the world, because they would have just corroded or vanished, including leather, Roman legionary sandals, papyrus documents from the Roman camps, and even cloth, including a cloth, believe it or not, from Scotland, which shows that one of the soldiers there might have been a mercenary from Scotland. And she actually found, believe it or not, a bit of, I wouldn't say tartan, but it was analyzed, and it's definitely got a very unique pattern. So these things were found, but not the particular camp which you just saw now, both next to it and from the air. So that's the long answer to that question. Another one is the whole story of Masada. So we're going to go into more of the story in the next 15 minutes. If there's any more questions, then I can definitely clarify that at the end. Steve? Do you have any photos to show? Okay, Steve is going to share a couple of photos now, and then I'll discuss them once the screen's shared. Okay, this is photo number 1. This is the original coin the Romans minted. This is taken from Kleptomaniac's Paradise, otherwise known as the British Museum in London, where when Britain had an empire and they just stole everything and brought it back to England. Jolly good show, God save the king or the queen. And this is a coin from that collection, and it shows the actual coin that was minted after the temple itself fell. We mentioned the Romans minted the coins and built the arch. So this says on the left side is a picture of Vespasian over here. On the right is the actual coin the Romans minted. Judea, there was no J's, it looks like an I. Judea capta, Judea is being captured. This is the Latin abbreviation for approved by the Senate. The palm tree symbolizing Judea we talked about. The left is a free Roman, and on the right over here is a Jewish woman in weeping by the side of the tree. Here's his armor over here, helmet. Some of the coins also actually had a proper Roman soldier with a shield and a spear as well, and a gladius, which is the Roman sword. And some of them were even minted in gold. They were very proud of themselves, the Romans. Of all the revolts against the Romans, the revolting Jews really took a lot out of the Romans, not once, but 3 times. The Great Revolt, which culminated with the fall of Masada in 73, which took 7 long years for the Romans to suppress, something called the Diaspora Revolt, and finally the Bar Kokhba Revolt from 132 to 135. So those Jews certainly put up a good fight, and the Romans were so relieved, they literally minted a coin afterwards of gratitude. Next one, Steve, what's our next coin? So this is a view of Masada from the north. And why am I showing you this aerial view? Because you can see Mount Elazar. Can you see my arrow over here? So this is where I hiked up. This is Mount Elazar to the south. This is the Roman army camp we were just standing at. And this is part of the Roman siege wall that even went up here and all the way down and around Masada. So over here, if you look where the arrow is, this, if you can see, just there's a square Roman army camp and part of the siege wall. This is the Roman, this is the Masada from the south. The left part, the right part of the picture, in case you can't see my arrow, you see an artificial terrace of Herod's, 3 of Herod's palaces. Over on the front of the Masada, there's all the storerooms. On the west side of Masada, there is another palace, because it's good to be the king. There was not 1, 2, or 3, but 4 palaces on top of Masada. And the southern part over here is where we were standing. This is the famous or infamous snake path that goes up Masada. And until the Romans built the ramp, this on the east side of the mountain, this was the only way up. So it was pretty impregnable, Masada. And Mount Elazar is a snake path times 2, just so you get an understanding of how physical it is to get to the top of this mountain next to Masada. All right, next coin, next picture, Steve. Okay, and this is the coin the Jews minted. You can see it much clearer now. This was minted in Caesarea in 1958, on the 10th anniversary of the state of Israel being founded. And you see very clearly in Hebrew, Asor lechewut Yisrael, a decade since the freedom of Israel. Tashiach, that's the Hebrew year, 1958. And in Latin, Israel Liberata, Israel's been liberated. The same palm tree, no Roman soldier. In his place, the Jewish woman holding the baby and her very well-trained husband on his knees next to her, and planting a sapling to show the rebirth of the Jewish people. This was officially minted by the Israeli Medallions Corporation. And I actually placed the coin on a part of the capital of one of Herod's palaces on Masada. You can see part of the scroll over here. Okay, and last we have, there you go. Actually, there's 4, right? Okay, the last picture is a view of Masada from the south. So there's one more picture after this. This is the view we saw from Mount Elazar. So what you don't normally see are these caves underneath the top of the plateau. And that's where Yigal Yadin, the archaeologist, actually found 20 remains of bodies from the time of the Masada revolt, because people always say, what happened to the bodies? So the Romans who stayed there afterwards for a few decades didn't just leave them lying around. They probably tossed most of them over the mountain, but about 20 of them were actually the bodies, the remains with Second Temple period fabrics were found in these caves. And the only way to see them is from Mount Elazar to the south. It's pretty amazing. It's a very unique view of Masada over here. And just over here to the very extreme left, you can see part of the Roman ramp that the Romans built going up Masada on the west side of Masada. And finally, one more picture, which for me is one of the most emotional. Steve, the Italy one, you got that one?
No.
Number 5, Tuvia 5 JPEG, there you go. All right, so the final picture, back when people could travel, BC, before Corona. This is under the Arch of Titus. And this is the famous or infamous menorah. We see the Romans taking out the menorah, symbolizing taking the light out of Zion. And they built this after they destroyed the temple. They'd minted the coin and built the arch. So that's why it was so important for them to get rid of Masada. Otherwise, why bother? And the Roman Jews made a pact that they would not walk underneath this arch until the Jews came back to their land. And for almost 2,000 years, no Jew walked underneath this arch until 1947, the 29th of November, when the United Nations voted to reestablish a Jewish state. The chief rabbi of Rome symbolically led the entire Jewish community underneath the arch. And that is why the state of Israel, as you can see on my Israeli passport over here, when I was standing underneath the arch about a year and a half ago, has exactly the same menorah from the arch as a symbol of the state of Israel. Just like that coin, we have taking the light out of Zion and bringing the light back into Zion. Pretty unique story. Okay, with all that drama, let's go on to the second part of the video. And this one, I'm going down the other side of Masada with my friend Shmuel, and I want to send you his details as well. And we are going round Masada from the west. Shmuel pops on top of Masada from the Roman ramp for a quick, brief 5-minute tour of some of the main sites on top. And then we run around the north of Masada, what's called the runner's path, where we follow that Roman circumvallation wall all the way around Masada back to where we started again. So get ready for the next 15 minutes. Again, if it's choppy or unclear or the sound is a bit spotty, you're welcome to click on the link at the 15-minute mark and watch the last 15 minutes in the comfort of your own home.
Okay, I'll start now then. Okay, enjoy.
We're running towards the Roman ramp. Part of this was actually the Israel National Trail. Oh, there we go. You can see the mark of the Israel National Trail. What a beautiful route it takes. Here we go, the siege wall. And Masada from the south. We've arrived to the bottom of the Roman siege ramp. I just want to show you behind me, you can see the funeral monument and the caves that we were looking at earlier. The bones that they found were reburied in this funeral monument, and they were given full military honor, really making a connection to the rebels of 2,000 years ago, as if they were defenders in the modern state of Israel. Quite an emotional sight, but look what we've got to do now. We've got to head up this ramp. So come with us on this run. Let's head up the ramp.
Yalla.
Yalla. That's another statement for you. Here we are as modern Jews running up the Roman siege ramp in times of freedom. It may be COVID, it may be Corona, we might not feel so free, but here in the land of the living, in the land of hope, in the land of miracles, we really feel freedom. But then in the sky above, easier than the snake path. It's a much shorter way to get up. Come and try it out. Super fun. Okay, made it to the top. This is the Byzantine gate from the 4th, 5th, 6th century. And here we are. Woohoo! The plateau of Masada, the Western Palace, and quickly take you past the Northern Palace. These are columbarium dovecotes. Stay tuned. An upcoming vlog, we're going to be doing the peak of Masada, bringing the history to you, but this is just a little taste of what's to come. So, we're now entering King Herod's palace on the northern tip of the mountain. And look at this. What a balcony he had. It's hazy, but it's beautiful. A 3-tiered palace on the edge of a mountain in the middle of the desert. King Herod built himself this magnificent fortress, magnificent palace. You see an entertainment lounge, almost 360-degree view from there. And then the lower tier, his private bathhouse. Man, this guy knew how to build. He certainly was sending a message to the masses that he is Herod the Great. And behind me, you can see his bedroom, his lounge. And he had, let me tell you, HD TV, high definition view. Every day when he woke up, this is what he got to see. Wow, we have to come back. We'll bring you more in a future vlog. Loving this one. There it is. A model to give us a feel of what this incredible palace was like. The lower palace, the bathhouse. The middle tier, the entertainment lounge. And up here, the living quarters. Quick run through the bathhouse. This is the public bathhouse. We're in the apoditarium. This is where they used to do outdoor gym, get their bodies beautiful. Here's the pool. Wow, magnificent. No water today. And inside, the frigidarium. This is the cool room. Hang out here with your friends on the triclinium. Check out these frescoes. 2,000-year-old paint, still keeping their color. Now we'll go into my favorite part, the hothouse. Hypocausts, holding up the floor to allow empty air cavities to heat the floor and to get this room hot. Sweating like iron today. Well, it's like a sauna, like a dry room, and it is the largest room in the hothouse, hence the name of hothouse. Boy, incredible to be here 2,000 years later talking about the story, but it's more like a hothouse outside. Exactly. Have a great day, guys. Okay, a quick stop from the synagogue. Here is the Beit Knesset, one of the oldest in the land of Israel, and you can still make out the seats and the pillars which may have held up the second floor. But here we have it. Incredible when the archaeologists were digging here. Hebrew letters coming out of the ground, fragments of writings connecting us with a period of the rebels 2,000 years ago. But you know what? This is not just a place of ruins. This place is alive and active as a synagogue. And would you believe, through this little door, the Arona Kodesh. Here you can see a good friend of mine writing a Torah scroll. Wow.
sheli b'dom Africa. Shana Tova. This is the rabbi wishing you all a happy new year. And Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, South Africa, Australia, America. Product, and then of course the perfect terraced shape of King Herod's palace that I've just shown you, which is artificial, hence the name Herod the Great. He pushed the limits of architecture and got that structure built on the northern tip. But I think there was some method to his madness, no? Because often when I'm here, you get this beautiful, cool draft of air coming up the northern side of the mountain. Stunning view, natural air conditioning. Boy, oh boy, like I said, this guy knew how to live the good life.
Not only that, his bottom palace had his own private bathhouse, in addition to the bathhouse on top of the mountain and the outdoor swimming pool.
Ridiculous.
It's good to be the king.
It's good to be the king, and it's good to have friends in high places. And I've got a friend now in low places. We're heading down to the lowest place on planet Earth. So check it out. We're going to be doing the runner's path. Unfortunately, the GoPro battery is dead, so I'm using the Samsung Galaxy 9. Let's see how it works. But here we go. On the runner's path, it's going to take us right around the circumference of Masada, and we'll be following the breach wall. But we're now on the west, and we're heading to the east, where the sun rises, and where we're going to have a swim later today in the Salt Sea. It's Aragasi, East Sea, whatever you want to call it. Let's go. Run! Run already! This is the running tour guide channel, not the hiking channel. Now the descent begins. Heading down into the valley towards, there's mine. It's saying move, we better move, it's getting hot. We're going to be going down to the breach wall, and you can see the Roman camp right down here on the northern tip. But here is a treacherous path down. Thank goodness for these rails that the National Reserve Authority, the National Parks Authority have put out for us. But Tuvia, take care. We are going down. We are going down, brothers. And there's rock slides as you go here. But also, I think it's a wise idea that I put this phone away. What do you think?
Excellent idea.
Excellent. So we'll catch you in a bit. See you at the bottom. Okay. You can see there's the cable car going down. So we've reached the base of the northern tip of the mountain, standing amongst the ruins of the Roman camp that we could not see from top of Mount Elazar. And I need to find some shade. And there happens to be one lone acacia tree, an acacia tortilis, an umbrella thorn. I think I'm going to head there, sit in the shade, and just wait for Dr. Book. I think he was on the phone, or maybe he's just using that as an excuse. So I'm keeping quite a tough pace. This piece of Africa in the middle of the desert. Oh, how I love this acacia tree. It's as if it's right here simply to provide me with shade. Always look on the bright side of life and look at the world as if it's created for you, but look after it. Oh, and look at this. I hate to have disturbed it. There is a beautiful bee eater, a European bee eater, but we'll identify it for you and let you know. Stunning, so silent. I can hear the flies and the bees. Oh, and what's that? Is it a bird? Is it a goat? Is it a Roman? No, it's Dr. Book.
Dr. Book, I presume.
Oh, I thought I was the only one out here. Yeah, he's come to disturb my peace.
Enjoying the shade of the, which tree is this, Sam?
This is an acacia tortilis, which is the umbrella thorn, all the way from Africa, brought here by a bird, dropped its feces, the seed rooted, and here we have the shade.
Amazing.
So, Dr. Book, seeing that we've seen the places the tourists never see, what's left for us? What's still in store?
Run all the way around the eastern side to the entrance of the snake path over here. That's it. Set to and hit the AC.
Okay, but the clock is ticking.
And it's 36 degrees.
36 degrees, and it's 4 hours and 28 minutes into this, I don't know if you can call this a run. It's more like a run hike.
Run hike adventure.
Exactly, but we better get going.
Yalla.
Yalla. Chaval al-Azman. Okay. There we have it. The cable house and the siege wall that goes right through this river, dry riverbed. Those crazy Romans. I mean, seriously, a wall 8 kilometers long surrounding the mountain. And they even have the chutzpah, the audacity, to build this siege wall right through this dry riverbed to make sure none of the besieged would escape. But the walls are broken and the Jews are back. Welcome home. Okay, we've just about come full circle and we've joined the snake path on the eastern side of Masada. Hope you all have enjoyed seeing the hidden places surrounding Masada that tourists seldom, if never, see. I thoroughly enjoyed being with Dr. Book. And these vlogs, this is the first of many vlogs you'll be seeing. We'll be exploring places together, bringing it to you. If you'd like to book Dr. Book, check out the description below. I'll be posting his details. Book him quick. The Hanukkah season is coming, the Christmas season is coming. Book the book. To do is to do. A phrase that Sylvia has coined and I've used many times. So may this vlog leave you inspired for a sweet, happy, healthy new year ahead. And thank you, thank all of you for following along. And this is the beginning, a new beginning of sweet things coming to you. So thank you, subscribe, smash that button. What that bell does is it subscribes to the channel and keeps you updated with vlogs from the Holy Land. Wishing you all a Shana Tova Umetuka. See you.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you, Tuvia. See you in 5,781 of the Jewish calendar coming up. And look at that. Nice way to finish. A cable car coming down a mountain. Years and years and years and centuries and thousands of years we've waited to return. And here, today was a statement of that. Returned, never more to be uprooted, for the soil has been given to this hopeful people. Shana Tova. And here we are chilling with Gamal. A perfect way to end the day. A lovely day in the desert, at the lowest place on earth. Let me introduce you to the beautiful Gamal. Love you all. Happy New Year. To
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for joining. So
Okay.
Tuvia, there's a couple of questions in the
Right.
in there. Do you want me to
Sure.
fire off? So we've got a question here. Did the periphery and the areas you've just shown play any historical roles servicing the palace or defense?
And not at all. We went around the bottom of Masada. That was all built by the Romans. Just a brief chronology. Herod built the fortress during his reign. He ruled Judea from 37 to 4 BCE, before the Common Era. It was basically pretty much not used during his time for any defense. He built it both as a palace, a mountain refuge, and as a fortress. It was then reused by the Zealots after the Great Revolt against Rome in 66 CE of the Common Era, and they held on until its fall in 73 CE. The 7 years they were there, they had to reconstruct it from being a fortress for soldiers and a king and his family to be the home of 967 men, women, and children. So they basically took all the walls around it on top and made those living, what used to be soldiers' barracks, made those living holes. And the royal palaces they didn't need, so they used them for different functions. And they built what religious Jews would need. They made one of the rooms into a synagogue. They made a lot of mikvahs, a lot of ritual baths, which Herod didn't build and they added. So when the archaeologists were excavated back in 67, they found both periods of Masada, the royal period with a grandiose architecture, and the later period of the Jewish zealots with much simpler, more modest, day-to-day architecture. That was on top. Everything around the mountain was built for siege on the mountain itself by the Romans between 70 and 73. That was the wall and the camps and the ramp itself.
Okay,
Next
great.
question.
Someone's asking here, where did the water come from?
Well, that's a great question, because to build a fortress, you need three things. You need D, 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 and D. One is defense, easy to defend, and the entire plateau around Masada is all connected, but Masada itself is a separate rock. Masada, by the way, comes from the Hebrew word Matsuda, fortress. So it's a natural fortress. Again, the only way till the ramp was built was that snake path. So easy to defend. Next is, of course, drive. Is it on a major trade route? And the answer is yes. It's just the border between the puppet king for the Romans built a border fortress on the border. Next, dining. Where did the food come from, right? Drink, drive, dining. Where did the food come from? The answer is there was an oasis of En Gedi, which is about 20 minutes to the north by car today. So that did provide some fresh food, but most of the food found in the warehouses, the storehouses on Masada, was food that you could have without a fridge, food that's easy to preserve. So 2,000 years later, the archaeologists still found remains of dates, figs, nuts, etc., etc. And the Jews, when they destroyed the fortress, deliberately did not destroy their food supply to show that they chose to kill themselves by their own choice, not because they ran out of food. In fact, and here's just a quick crazy story, one of the date pits that was found by Yadin in 1961, has been regenerated by Israeli scientists, and the palm tree now grows out of it in a kibbutz called Kibbutz Kturah in the south, just north of Eilat. And that's a 2,000-year-old palm tree, probably the oldest in the world, which Israeli scientists have grown from one of the date pits found in Masada. So the food up there would last for decades. It's so dry. And the last question, the water, that's the big question. So about 3 or 4 days of the year, sometimes a bit more, we have flash floods in that region. And what Herod's engineers did is they basically constructed 14 cisterns, which between them and those 3 days of rain could hold, and I'm not making this up, 40,000 cubic liters of water. The 3 days of rain could hold enough water for a decade. Pretty unbelievable. 13 of the cisterns were on that west side that we saw, and one, which is very accessible, is actually on top of Masada on the southern side, and they were plastered with pneumatic plaster so the water wouldn't seep through to the rock behind them. So that's how they dealt with it. There was an aqueduct leading the water to the side of Masada, but the Romans destroyed that during the siege. So that's how they did it, aqueducts and massive cisterns. That's how the water got in there. Next.
Okay, someone's asked here, what were the challenges, and how did you organize it during a lockdown? But I think from recollection, you weren't. Was it officially in lockdown during that time?
Right. So the lockdowns, yes. When we did it, there was a semi-lockdown. Even now, even though the lockdown's over in Israel, the national parks are open in Israel, even though the schools are still not back and the businesses, most of them are still shuttered. But national parks are still accessible. What you have to do is basically you need to just go on the website and register in if they let a certain amount of people in. But in this case, except for the part on top of Masada, we won a nature trail, which wasn't actually a paid admission national park. And that's how we did it. The main thing I can tell you as a combat medic in the IDF is to take a lot of water with. You always wear your hats and put it on your body, kids. Yes.
Another question, Tuvia. Are Masada and Elazar mentioned in the sources at all?
Well, Masada, obviously, that's mentioned very much by Josephus. He's our main source on it. In fact, that was the book that the Jewish Wars, or Bellum Judaicum, is what the archaeologist Yadin did. By the way, the original dig in 1961 to 63 was funded, believe it or not, by the Daily Mail in the UK. They funded that dig. They put a lot of money into that dig, and there was the volunteers from all over the world, including many Jews and non-Jews in the UK who actually came to volunteer. If I'm not mistaken, one of my mother's friends even came out there, Diana Walensky, and they were volunteered for like 2 years during that site. And the archaeologist Yadin was actually walking around with Josephus, which people just thought was exaggerated. But the more he dug, the more accurate he found that it was when he was describing the physical remains, as opposed to when he was describing himself, which leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to accuracy. But he said crazy things like there was 4 palaces or swimming pools, bathhouses, and people thought that was hyperbole until it was actually excavated and found it was remarkably accurate. As far as Mount Elazar, that's a recent name that's not mentioned in the sources, though the sources do mention that there was a Roman camp above, which refers to Mount Elazar, but the name is a new name, and that was named after the commandant of the force of the Jews on Masada, whose name was Elazar ben Yair. And believe it or not, Josephus mentions him by name, and Yigal Yadin found a piece of pottery in Ostrakhan with the name Ben Yair on top of Masada in situ. So there's actually historical evidence that he did exist.
Fascinating. Somebody by the name of Linda Lyons has just posted that she worked on the excavations with Yigal Yadin in the 1960s as a volunteer. So thanks, Linda, for letting us know.
Right.
Yeah, fascinating.
I wasn't even a twinkle in the milkman's eye back then, but amazing, yeah.
And then another one here. So it's not for most people to be able to climb that, but what preparations did you have to make to climb Mount Elazar?
Basically, just to be physically fit. I mean, my friends and I are both running around and riding, and yeah, it's physical fitness. I can't say anything else. Stamina, physical fitness, and don't be an idiot and go in the middle of July and August, but to go when it's a bit cooler.
And take lots of water.
Lots of water, yes.
Yeah. And another one from the audience, another person has asked, where did the Byzantine monks get food and water when they lived up there?
Okay, so as I mentioned, Masada was basically abandoned by the Romans a couple of decades after the fall of it. There's no point holding a legion there doing nothing. And sometime in the 6th century, a bunch of Byzantine monks actually made their way to the top of Masada, built a small church, which is still there today, with lovely mosaic floors and some nice decoration in the wall as well. And they basically did what the Jews had done 600 years earlier. There was still that cistern on top of Masada that still has enough water for a few Byzantine monks, as well as thousands of other people. So they used a cistern on top of Masada for water. And as far as food goes, we have this amazing phenomena of food being preserved for hundreds of years. So they probably still had access to Herod's original storehouses on the northern part of the mountain, but they themselves were only there briefly, because in the year 749, there was a massive earthquake that basically destroyed most of the land of Israel, including the Byzantine church on top of Masada and many major cities in the region.
Fascinating, thank you. So we've got one last question here for this evening. What can you tell about the Maccabees, who this gentleman has read, first used Masada as a fortress?
Well, Josephus mentioned that it was originally built by King Jehonatan. His Greek name is better known, Alexander Eunaeus, one of the Maccabean kings. It's said that he originally built it as a fortress, but the only remains of anything the Maccabees from that period that Yadin and Shemariah, Gutman, and the other archaeologists found was some Maccabean coins, which doesn't really mean that much because Jews used coins for centuries afterwards as well, the same prutot. So that's all that's been found archaeologically. Josephus mentions it in one sentence. It was originally built by Alexander Eunaeus, but there are no archaeological remains from that period. The earliest ones go back to Herod. And the last question, no, it had no part of the Bar Kokhba revolt, although some of Bar Kokhba's warriors' remains were found in caves to the north of Masada, around the area of Ein Gedi, which is about a 20 minutes north drive of Masada.
Fantastic. Well, I think everyone who's still with us will agree that it's been a fascinating evening and a wonderful opportunity to at least glimpse some of those amazing sites and sort of get immersed in the whole feel of that very special region of Israel. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Tuvia, for a wonderful tour and virtual adventure off the beaten track. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are still with us, we've got another 5 of these virtual adventures with Tuvia coming up over the next 5 months. We will be planning dates in the next few days, so bear with us. And between the WZO UK and the Zionist Federation, we'll be sharing them in our newsletters, we'll be sharing them on our social media platforms. So, look out for them and please do join us in the future for them. And in the meantime, we have another webinar, which is political in its nature. It's on Thursday evening. I'm putting the link in the chat section here. It's about educating for peace, and it's all about the incitement that's still found in the Palestinian Authority curriculum. So if you'd like to join us, it's free to join. You just have to register. And for those of you who are inclined to join, we'll see you on Thursday night. And then we have on the 23rd of Tuesday, the 23rd of February at 7 p.m. We've got Dr. Tuvia Book joining us again to present as part of our Inspirational Zionists series of webinars, all about the British Major General Ord Wingate, who was a wonderful Zionist. So please look out on social media and our newsletters for that. And in fact, tomorrow when I email you all the recording, I'll put details of all of this in there for you. So thank you again on behalf of the WZO UK and the ZF for joining us.
Thank
we
you.
Really appreciate your support and stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Very informative.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
It was so gorgeous and amazing. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Keep safe.